Recently, people have had a lot of negative things to say about countries like Saudi and the UAE. While we were in Qatar, we sat down with Muaawiyyah Tucker so that he can give us a full picture of the changing government policies, taxes, and living situations available in these two countries. He also gave us his general advice to those considering moving abroad.
There are people who say that in some countries, they advise people not to go to these countries because of the government's political positions in the world. And I'm trying not to be specific, but
yeah.
Right. So, I mean, what is your take on that? If the government supports a certain thing that's anti-Islamic or whatever, what does that have to do with us in terms of moving to that country and living in that country?
I find it an odd stance anyway, considering that we're discussing Hijrah.
Right.
Or some might not like the term Hijrah, but prefer the term migration, Muslim migration, from non-Muslim countries to Muslim countries.
Right.
And I guess the majority of our audience are either from the United States or the UK, because they're English speaking. And I don't know any two countries which support the killing of Muslims globally more than those two. So to say I'm going to stay there rather than go to that which is less than that, I find it odd. But if you still man the argument, say, okay, let's say, okay, yeah, that's wrong, and we should do something about it. Let's have that stance. Allah said in the Quran, "Qu anfusakum ahlikum nara." Save yourselves and your family from hellfire. I think we need to focus on the very important point that we, as Muslims, need to really drill in that point here, that my priority, first and foremost, is myself and my family. We do our best for other things and other people as much as possible, our neighbors, people in our other country, but primarily our first port of call is ourselves and our families. I find it odd to imagine that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, we would ever be questioned, why did you go to this Muslim country, Kada, and why did you not stay in England or Saudi Arabia? So I understand on an emotional level, how can these Muslims countries acquire it? This is on the assumption that what they're saying is true, because someone could argue that's not even true anyway.
Right.
But I don't want to get into the argument if it's true or not. I'm trying to steel man the argument. I want to say, fair enough. Let's accept it's true for the sake of argument. Even if it was true, that doesn't mean you condemn your family to remain in where we're trying to escape. Again, from that aspect, I find it an odd position to take, but an understandable one from the emotional perspective. Right. Emotionally, we feel betrayed.
Right.
How can we not defend and help our ikhwan?
Right.
We feel there's betrayal here.
Right.
And normally with betrayal, the first thing we want to do is make hijra. We want to say, look, I'm not going to be... I mean, what happens between husband and wife? The husband does something the wife doesn't like. Right. She does speak to him. This man is the closest person to you, but you abandon him while you're fine to your neighbor, who might not be Muslim. Right. So in that perspective, I can understand that behavior, but don't cut your nose off to spite your face. Right. That's my position. Right. Number one. And number two, what are we trying to do anyway? We're trying to better ourselves and the mujtama. So if you must, I always think of us like multiple circles, like a circle in the middle, which is you, and then wider circles, and then wider circles, and then wider as it gets wider and wider. And our job as a Muslim is to do as much as we can and to stretch our reach to as many circles as possible without neglecting the inner circles. But if one doesn't feel that way, then there are many Muslim countries that are different. I mean, for example, I saw a video just the other day, like Malaysia. They showed like there was a restaurant over here, a Malaysian restaurant, packed. Then the camera panned to, like, I think it was one of the Western restaurants, empty. And another one, it was packed. And they were saying how the Malaysians are really strict on boycotting the companies that support certain countries. Right. So if one has that position, there's plenty of countries that are open. There's Malaysia, there's Indonesia, plenty of countries that are vocally open. So if that's your flavor, then tafaddal. Right. And I guess I think the best way to complete this question is to remember I think the most important thing that every muhajir or every migrant Muslim needs to consider, and that is hijrah or migration is not a one-day thing. Right. It's not a one-location thing. You may go to Turkey this year or 2 years. You may go to Malaysia the 5th, 6th year. You may go to multiple locations before you finally settle on somewhere to go, and that's not a problem. Right. Sometimes people have this vision that you have to have the final solution now, otherwise I'm staying where I am. Right. And this is from shaitan, 100% from shaitan. Shaitan says to you, find the ultimate solution or stay where you are. Right. Knowing that you can't get the ultimate solution. There's no Mecca, Medina, and your house is next to the Haram, and you walk 5 minutes and you're in the Baqi. That doesn't exist. There's no ultimate solution. You might have to spend months, years, decades even before you finally settle on some. And even if you think about it, maybe, for example, maybe you're in your working years and a certain city suits you for working.
Right.
Now you're retiring and something else that suits you better.
Right.
Maybe you're working for some number of years and then your work changes to remote working. The idea that you must settle one place, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's ridiculous. That's what I would say in that regards. I would just say, look, I feel the pain, I feel the betrayal. If it's even valid and true, don't cut your nose off to spite your face.
Right. So let's argue that they're not saying stay in the UK, stay in the US or the Canada, wherever, or Western country, but they're saying don't choose this one. Is even that valid?
Yeah. Again, every situation is unique.
Right.
And what I would say is, it actually depends on your circumstances. Maybe this one country you want to avoid is the easiest, only available one now.
Right.
As in, you can't go to Turkey now; it's not open yet. You can't go to Malaysia now. You haven't got the means to get MM2H. You haven't got there yet.
Right.
So until you get that, you go to the next level down.
Right.
I mean, even me when I first started thinking about migration, my view of Turkey was quite low anyway. But before I went to Turkey, my view of Turkey was really low. So when I went there, it was like amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
And now my view of Turkey completely changed. But going back on that old view, my view was if everything else fails, Turkey is still a Muslim country at least.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
You can go to level 1 before you get to level 2, 3, 4 and get to level 10. Like I said, take whatever you're given.
Right.
But most importantly, I think for Westerners, because we're all Westerners, or the Muslim diaspora, I think we do have a little bit of kibr. Let me explain. Not mean arrogant people, but kibr meaning we have this privileged mentality. And why don't I get this? I should get this.
Right.
Bro, there's nothing you should get. Whatever you're given, you say Alhamdulillah.
Right.
If you're given opportunity to be here, Alhamdulillah.
No.
Literally, if you literally are able to come into a country, make shukr of Allah that you are able to do that, because many can't even do that.
Right.
I mean, think about it. There are Muslims now who've been bombed. They can't leave.
Yeah.
Bro, you can leave.
Yeah.
Allah has given you the privilege to just leave when you want to.
No.
When there are many who can't leave when they want to. I just spoke to a brother, Syrian originally, and he was telling me that he left. His wife was pregnant and she had to be delivered, and he lived near the border of Turkey. So he was told you have to go cross over to the border of Turkey because it's a war zone, give birth, and then so he had planned literally to go there, give birth, stay a couple of days, maybe weeks, and then return.
Right.
He never thought he would never return. Imagine that.
Right.
He said he had a house, a villa, everything. And he left thinking he's coming back. Never came back. And he found out that after the event, what he had is gone. Destroyed. So really, we don't really recognize the ni'mah, the sheer ni'mah we have, that we have a passport that gives us access.
Yeah.
We can literally go and land and we get e-visa waiver. That's it. Half a year. Khalas. Take what you can get. If you can get more, take more.
Right.
But at every step, whatever you could take, don't take it as something you deserve, but as something Allah has gifted you, and say, Alhamdulillah, Allah's gifted this me. Give this to me. Because wallah is a ni'mah.
No.
Here at Make Hijrah, our goal is to bring you the latest information on what's going on in the Muslim world, ensuring that you're able to make informed decisions on how and where to make Hijrah. But we can't do this without your support. If you value this cause, go to fund.makehijra.com to support our productions. Your contribution allows us to travel throughout the Muslim world to give you a clear picture of what your options actually are. Whether it's a one-time or continuous donation, every bit helps us to continue producing content for you. Jazakallahu khairan for your support. Now back to the video.
So I did the series about how to set up a company and get a residency in UAE since, and that was about 2 years ago, I think it was, about 2 years ago.
Right.
And I think the largest change that's happened is that it's no longer tax-free. And I think it's about 9%, which is still very low on a global scale.
Right.
And it's only over a certain amount. I think it's over 100,000 dirhams, or even, no, 100,000 pounds. So once you earn over 100,000 pounds, which I guess is about $130,000 US, then you have to pay that. You already had to pay VAT over a certain amount anyway before that. But that's only if you were doing business in the UAE.
Right.
If you didn't do that, then there's no VAT. So that's probably the main material change between then and now. Realistically speaking, you're talking about a Muslim country. And I know some people have looked at, I was talking about even like Malaysia. Malaysia has tax. It's not like it ever was tax-free. It always had taxes anyway. But I think you even mentioned it in one of your old videos that at the end of the day, your taxes are going towards the Muslimin anyway.
Right.
It's not like you're going towards funding wars.
Right.
It's not like you're killing Muslims with it. It's going towards addressing the needs of the Muslims. And I think even in Malaysia, you had the opportunity that if you paid zakah, you can use that to offset your taxes anyway. Right. So, great. Right. So if you're looking from that perspective, me personally, I'm not that bothered about if I had to pay tax in a Muslim country anyway. Before we even get to the taxes, if you open a company to just get residency, that still exists. And you don't really even have to do any business. So when it comes to doing your tax returns anyway, you just put how much have you earned? 0. How much have you spent? 0. How much? 0, 0, 0, 0, end, and then
so you
that's
owe
the end of it.
Right.
But if you did do that, you could pay yourself a wages, and you only pay taxes on your net income on your business. Let's say you earned $100,000, and you paid yourself $50,000, and you paid your wife or someone you know $20,000 or whatnot, whatever. So now your net income is about $20,000. Then that's it. That's your net income. You're still below the threshold of paying taxes anyway. So realistically, if you're earning good money anyway, then it's not really that big a deal. The only thing I would add, and this is very important, Ikhwan, to pay attention to, if you open a company via an agency, there is this clause that a lot of the agencies do that ties you in to them, and they usually charge you for that. So you almost become locked in. If you don't pay for that, they will close down your business for you, which is a weird caveat that people don't make it clear to you at the beginning that if you stop doing business with us, then your business closes or you pay for it. Right. But that is just a situation that exists. What I don't want you to do is go into it thinking, yeah, I'm live, I'm happy, I can do my own thing now. Now I'm a resident in the country, I know how things work, I could do my own thing. Right. And then when you want to leave, you're surprised with this fee that came out of nowhere. But that's the only caveat I would say, is just to be aware that thing exists. Right. Because it's not something that's made clear, obviously, to people who want to sign up. And also, when I did a company 3 years ago, 2021, the residency was 3 years. Now it's 2. So that means every 2 years, you have to do a whole chest scan, x-ray scan, test for tuberculosis, that kind of stuff. Right. Every 2 years. Right. And get a new whatnot. And renew your driver's license and that kind of stuff. Another benefit as well, which I learned along the way. If you have a driver's license in your own country and you come to the UAE, you show your driver's license and you get the Emirati driver's license. Like, the moment
you get it right away.
Yeah. You don't have to go for any tests. You just go there, pay the fees, they do picture and do eye tests to make sure you can see. Right. And then you get your bitaqa for driving, your card for driving. Now, most people don't know. They think, oh, I have my UK license, I have my Emirati license, I'm good. Right. What people don't realize is that if you are actually a legal resident of UAE and you travel back to the UK for a short period of time for a holiday, visit family, whatnot, you're not allowed to actually use your UK license. Your UK license is because you're a UK resident. If you're no longer a UK resident, you have to use your Emirati license.
I didn't know that.
In summary, your UK license is null and void when you are a resident elsewhere. Your new license becomes your actual driver license. You now pay taxes in your corporation, and your residency in Iqama is only 2 years, not 3.
Get your copy of the Hijra Handbook at book.makehijra.com.
There was another question regarding the e-visa waiver.
Yeah.
That when people looked it up, they said, this is only available to UK.
From what I'm aware, it was already available for Americans, and then only recently it was open to the Brits on a bilateral status, meaning that Saudis can go to UK, just like UK can go to Saudi. It's a bilateral thing. An American one I've heard You can just look online, but it's even more than a half a year. I think it goes up to like 10 years. I mean, if you think about it, that's crazy. If you think about it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I don't know how you get it or what are the conditions,
Right.
but it's still just an e-visa waiver. It's not, you're not muqim, you're not a resident.
Right.
It's important to recognize that an e-visa waiver, just I mean, it's more clearer when you look at the Arabic. It's called ta'shiyat al-i'fa. I'fa means, well, it means waiver, as in you don't need. So technically, it's not even a visa. You're waived from having need of a visa. That's kind of how it's positioned. I mean, you do have a visa number,
Right.
but it's called i'fa. So you're just not like that. You just need to stipulate why you're there, which is either tourism, business, umrah, or something. And third, or medical. Could even use it medical. I know for a fact it's not available for Canada, but that's all I know for a fact. England, UK, America, Canada. That's what I know. Because I know there's a Canadian guy I met, and he said, "No, we don't have that." Again, it's important to realize or recognize what it means. E-visa waiver. What does it mean? It means you can enter the country legally for that duration. If you leave, that visa ends, but you're not a resident, meaning no bank account.
Right.
You can't legally get a long-term rental. You can get what's called shaqqa mafrusha, which is basically a furnished apartment, which basically means a long-term hotel.
Right.
Which is you get what you pay for. You pay a lot of money for that, or comparatively more money.
Right.
Which also includes Airbnbs.
Okay.
So that's open to you.
Right.
You just be paying a premium for the lack of ability to get a long-term residency. Because the reason, and I guess the reason why it's changed, or if you think about how it's changed, those of you who may remember or know about how it used to be. In the past, I remember when I was in Medina Uni, looking for a flat meant walking around the streets, looking for an empty mukayyif hole, empty aircon hole. And if there's an empty hole, you knock on the door, so is there, shukka fadhi ya sheikh? Is there an empty place? Yeah. And then you find the sahib al-imara, the owner of the building. You have an agreement, you sign paper, and that's it. You give him cash, and you sign paperwork, and that's it.
Right.
It was between you and him. Then they put it into the system. So every agreement you have with the landlord now is with the agreement is with the government. So if they do anything wrong, the government's there to step in and say, no, this is the rule, this is what you have to do, so don't do it. So it removes any risks of being scammed or anything like that. But that's gone, legally. You can still get flats long term the old way, but I think the nizam, the normal system is that you still should use what's called abshir, the normal system. And so it still can be done. How you go about it, I guess, just literally ask if you can. But it's the same as before. The same risks that you had before, the same risks you have today. And I would assume, this is an assumption, I would assume it's more risky for them to try and scam you, because if they try and kick you out, and you call the police and look, they try and kick you out, then they kind of get exposed that they are renting out without using the system, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if you have it written down.
Right.
So have it written down, witnesses signed. Again, this is not from experience. I'm just saying, not from experience. But yeah, that's how ta'shiyat works. And every time you leave, you can come back in that way. And I guess one extra bit of information is that even those, I know one brother, even though he has iqama, he works, he has actual valid residency, his wife and kids are not on iqama. They're on e-visa waiver. Why? Because it's cheaper. If you have a residency for your dependents, you pay 400 riyals per dependent. So that's about £90 every person per month. So if you have a wife and 8 kids,
right,
that's about £800 every month just for them to be there.
Right.
Or £33 per head, 6 months, and that's it.
Right.
So if you just do the maths, what makes more sense?
Right. Yeah.
The only reason why you would have a residency is if you want your kids to join official location institutions like universities.
Right.
That's the main thing really. With university, if you want your child to go university, or if you want to go to even like government schools, I guess you could get around that way. Just if you're just paying for it, but because on the e-visa waiver, you can do education.
You can do.
Yeah, it does say education. Again, legally you can. It doesn't mean that the actual institution knows what that means, and even accepts that. But it does say you can do it for education purposes. So that could be like a short-term courses kind of thing.
Right.
I don't know. I wouldn't know what the details, but that's what I would say.
Our latest project is the Hijra Readiness Assessment Test, a short, insightful survey designed to help you identify your strengths and areas for improvement on your Hijra journey. Visit hijratest.com now and start your journey towards a successful Hijra, inshallah.
The kafala system. For people who don't understand it, I'm talking about from a fiqh standpoint. can you explain? Because a lot of people, they think it's like exploitation or a way to just keep you. And maybe some people do use it in that way. But what's the original idea? What's the...
So interesting enough, so the issue of the kafala system, just basically, if you remember, if you know there's a hadith, when the Messenger of Allah was chasing after one of the Quraysh, who was kafir at the time, and he managed to, he was on a run, and he managed to go to someone who he knew called Hani. So he entered into her, says, Inni astajiruki, I mean, I'm asking you for jiwar, for protection. So the Messenger of Allah came, and he said, look, Ya Hani, hand him over. And she said, Inni laqad ajartuhu. I've given him jiwar, I've given him sanctuary, I've given him safety. So the Messenger of Allah said, Inni laqad ajartu man ajarti ya Hani. I have given sanctuary to one whom you've given sanctuary on. I'm not saying the kafala system is that, but there's a parallel in that she became responsible for him.
Right.
He was under your care, your responsibility. If anything goes wrong, we come to you. So I think that was kind of the way that the Saudis tried to deal with it. Who, if this person comes to the country, who deals with the fact that, you know, if they die, if they have any fines, who's responsible for all this stuff? I mean, we could be, but admin, you know, who it was back in the day. So they kind of made it tied to the person who brought you here. They brought you here, they're under your jiwar. So then you are the one who's responsible for that.
Right.
And if they want to leave or whatnot, then it's between you two. But the good thing is that system's dead now. It doesn't exist anymore in Saudi Arabia. Saudi officially now has taken that on themselves. Now there is an element of tying in, meaning that if you come into the country, a company brings you in, they go by your contract.
Right.
So if you are in the country via contract, then you are obliged to commit to your contract, the rules and so the contract says you work from these hours, you have to work those hours. And likewise, if they don't pay you, the government come after them.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, he got his company, he's working for a university. And they asked him, do you want your first pay in cash or in your bank? And he said, oh, cash is good. So he got it in cash. The next day, he got a text message from the government saying, we've noticed they haven't paid your wages. Do you want to launch a complaint? So the government are watching, how is your relationship? Are they treating you well?
Right.
And vice versa.
Right.
So if you're mistreating them, or if they're mistreating you, then the government can step in because they know the rules and regulations of the contract. Now, if you want to leave that company and work for someone else, here's the thing that I guess many people still find a bit iffy. If I wanted to move from teaching English or move from teaching engineering at university from one company to another company, I need to get written approval that the guy who brought you over is okay with the thing. As in, have you finished all your obligations? Is there no conflict of interest?
Right.
And the way they described it, because I attended one event about this, a Saudi event about this. And they said the reason why they did that was because in case of conflict of interest, imagine you work for a company for 5 years and then a competitor says, come work for me.
Yeah, right.
Then they can say, look, no, this guy's my competitors. And now he's worked for me 5 years, knows all my inner details and work. He's now going to work over there. So they could say, look, no, he's the competitor. No. And then if there's a conflict, then they'll step in and see, is he really a competitor? Is there a way he can work? And the government will step in. But if they reject the transfer and it's unrelated, the government will say, no, we don't accept that. But once you've made the first transfer, then it's easy to go from place to place. It's not that difficult. It's just the first person who brought you over because they paid for you to come over.
Right.
The others don't pay for anything. It's just a transfer. But the first one who brought you over and paid the money, what's he saying?
Right.
So some may say that as making excuses for them. Bro, I don't know. I'm just telling you how it works. We can agree, disagree. This is just how governments work. This is admin. This is how they organize the system.
Right.
It is what it is.
But it's a basis for it.
That's the basis for it, yeah. But just to conclude, being abused can happen for anything, even the Sharia. Just like a husband can divorce his wife by a word, but his wife can't do so without going to the courts, that can easily be abuse as well.
Right.
It's the same thing. So even with the haqq, a person can abuse that for their own maslahah. So just because someone abuses a system doesn't inherently make the system wrong.
Right.
I'm not defending what they do in Saudi or UAE or any other countries. I'm just saying that the abuse of individuals doesn't make the system inherently bad. It just means that person is not a good person, isn't it?
Right. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Thanks for having me. Jazakallah khair.